Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 63. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. Dave getting ready for some Monday night football between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Miami Dolphins. So a pretty eventful, exciting week number 15. The Steelers will look to carry that off on a good note for them tonight at a very cold Acrisure Stadium, about 10 degrees here. Big snowstorm over the weekend. Shouldn't be any big snow for this game, but it will be frigid hosting the Southern Miami Dolphins. Dave, how you doing?
Yeah, it's freezing out here in Las Vegas. It's 47 degrees.
My heart goes out to you.
Just how cold is it there?
About 10 degrees, according to my phone right now. So we're back in double digits, which we weren't this morning. But yeah, it's a cold. Miami's trying to play into it, though. They had a big practice at Robert Morris this weekend in the snow. So we'll see if their fun in the snow carries over to tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's going to make for a long day, long night for us. But to close out Week 15 of the NFL season with a game with a lot on the line with both teams, Miami trying to hang around. They come into this game, 6-7, and they're going to have to win out more than likely to make the playoffs. And we all know the Steelers situation, and the Steelers didn't get a lot of help, especially within division, specifically from Cincinnati. They just laid down. And the Ravens shut them out there. So more and more, it's shaping up like, regardless of what happens on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins, that the final game against Baltimore Ravens could be one where the winner gets in and the loser goes home type of scenario there. But it all starts, the Steelers can certainly help their cause by beating the Miami Dolphins at Acrisure. They're breaking out the color rush uniforms. They're breaking out the gold end zones there. They're breaking out the cold weather. And we'll see which way this goes. And I look forward to previewing this game with you today.
Won't be breaking out TJ Watt, though, officially out for this game. Before we get to Watt, and we'll start there and recap everything we've learned over the last 48 hours. Have a great interview later in the show with Hal Habib. He covers the Dolphins for the Palm Beach Post. Just wrapped up our conversation with him. You guys will hear shortly, so really get insight into what's happening down in South Beach. But Dave, let's start with the health of both teams, and of course, start with TJ Watt, who will not play in this game. Mike Tomlin confirming that a couple days ago with that lung issue. There's been a lot of developments that have happened since we last spoke, Dave. I think on the Friday show, you had the Tom Pelissero report that seemed to not give all the details, either intentionally or unintentionally, on what happened with TJ Watt. JJ Watt taking to Twitter on Friday to say that TJ had successful surgery for a partially collapsed lung after a dry needling session that apparently, obviously so, went awry. Watt will not play in this game. His status for Week 16 and beyond is unknown. Conflicting media reports, some suggesting that he will play or has a good chance to play, some saying it'll be challenging for him to return. We just don't know his health going forward for the Lions game and onward. So obviously, something happened here where this was not, quote-unquote, organic, where Watt was experiencing pain. He had treatment, dry needling session, where apparently a lung, you would assume, was punctured. He was in extreme pain, taken to the hospital. Full recovery is expected. So again, health is paramount, and he's going to be okay, and that's the most important thing of all, but certainly opens up questions of when will he return, and certainly how could this have happened?
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from how this can happen. You just don't know. I mean, was this an outside contractor? Was this an employee of the team? I think we're still kind of up in the air as far as that goes. Shout out to our own Melanie Friedlander as well too. We put the bat signal out, as I had mentioned on the podcast the other day, hoping she could write up a couple of things on that. She did. Those posts obviously do very, very well. Learned a lot by her writing up a couple of post on that, and now we just sit and wait. And look, when the original report came out, what day was that? Was it Thursday or
Friday, I think, was
Friday?
the Pelissero report, Friday morning.
Right. Immediately, my head went to, well, we can go ahead and probably expect him not to play against Miami. And then, as more and more came out over the weekend, I have no, I'm not. I guess if you were to ask me which way I'm leaning going forward, as far as past this Miami game, I would lean on the side of doubting that he would play against the Lions. But there've been several reports to say, I think even our Dr. Mel even kind of surmised that if things go perfectly, that there's a chance that he could play against the Lions. Uh, I think we're just going to have to take a wait and see
Sure.
on this, because how much will his conditioning and his ability to stay in really good football shape be impacted going forward. The key thing is they are not going to have him Monday night, and this is a huge deal, especially against a Miami team that's probably going to try to run all over the Steelers. And look, teams go into games against the Steelers when T.J. Watt plays of how they can effectively take away T.J. Watt, the pass rusher, and you now you don't have to worry about that. Yes, the Steelers have accomplished guys in Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig, who are going to play substantially tonight, but it's just not the same having a game wrecker over there on one side and T.J. Watt. So it's unfortunate. People want to be able to place fingers on blame and how does this happen? I don't have the answers to that. Maybe we'll know more over the next couple of weeks. It does seem like kind of a freakish type accident or misfortune when it comes to this. And now the Steelers have something that they're going to have to get past without, obviously one of their, if not their best defensive player on a defensive unit that has had a lot of ups and downs this year, specifically against the run. So we'll just have to see how they come out of this on the other side. It would be nice to escape Monday night with a win, kind of. And look, a best case scenario is that you win. You string together a couple of wins here, and then you make that week 18 game against the Ravens insignificant, where you might even be able to rest T.J. Watt again. So we'll see how this goes. But the fact of the matter is we have to look at what's happening right now, and the now is that they're not going to have T.J. Watt Monday night.
You're right. There's a lot we still don't know about Watt's situation and how all that came to be in terms of, was it a doctor, a trainer, an outside contractor? What liability Pittsburgh has is going to be determined in the weeks and months ahead. But what we do know is that Watt will not play tonight. Pittsburgh, and without TJ Watt, including playoffs, 1-11 when he does not play. Now they have better depth. They've insulated themselves much better than, say, 2022 when Watt missed half the season by drafting Nick Herbig and drafting Jack Sawyer. So for all the stats working in Pittsburgh's favor, Monday night at home, the color rushes, Miami being in a cold environment, the one stat working against Pittsburgh is the record without TJ Watt. Certainly will be put to the test tonight, but I think Pittsburgh has a better chance than those other situations, those past 12 games, to win because of the group they've assembled at outside linebacker.
All right, we'll definitely see.
From the rest of the health and injury standpoint of this team, so 3 Steelers ruled out of this game. Of course, T.J. Watt being one of them. Also, Andres Pete with his concussion. He did not practice the entire week, including Saturday. He is out. And unfortunately, James Pierre did not practice all week with that calf injury. So he was a guy that went from maybe limited early in the week, but should play, to now he will miss this game. So unfortunate there. Asante Samuel Jr. should get the start. And you wonder about cornerback depth. It looks pretty thin right now. Behind one player questionable, that's Derrick Harmon with his knee. He did return to practice on Saturday after missing the Thursday and Friday sessions, but it was a limited participation on Saturday. He's officially questionable. Usually for a rookie with very limited reps, means he won't play. Will they push it with Harmon? If he's healthy, I'm going to get him out there for even base package snaps, limited snaps, 10 to 20. I take him over dressing Logan Lee, but we'll just have to see on that. Darnell Washington was initially called questionable to end the week, but Sunday the team announced he has cleared protocol. He's been upgraded to no game status, and he will play. So that is a big boost to Pittsburgh's run game. Ben Skoranek, Keanu Benton, DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Queen, Kyle Duggar, Malik Harrison, Y.A. Black, Cam Hayward, and Calvin Austin III all will play despite battling some varying degrees of injuries throughout the week. So Pierre, Pete being out, Cook should get the start at left tackle, and then really watching Derrick Harmon for the final active inactives tonight.
Yeah, I don't know where I lean. I got to turn in. We'll see how the elevations go later on in the day. Obviously, the Steelers should be expected to elevate an offensive lineman to give them 8 to be in uniform with Andres Pete out. I'm kind of leaning toward that possibly being, I don't know, Driscoll, it feels like would be the most logical, but we'll have to see in a couple of hours there. Will they elevate another edge, or will they elevate another cornerback to help maybe on special teams? Look, having James Pierre, guys, played very, very well for this team, not only on special teams, but on the defensive side of football as well, too. You certainly, you could run into a situation where you miss him in this game, especially when it comes to helping out on the run, because the Dolphins are probably going to try to run the snot out of the football against the Steelers tonight. And then, with Asante Samuel Jr., who I believe only played one defensive snap in this last game, if there's one bugaboo about Asante Samuel that's been hanging over him for his career, it's his tackling ability, and specifically how he handles defending the run. So there's certainly that aspect, and then we get into the whole Dylan Cook making his first NFL start. We talked about this the other day. What a big opportunity it is for him, and especially against a fairly good edge unit that can get after the passer there. But the plus side is he's had a whole week now to prepare for his first NFL start. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Good thing that Darnell Washington pepped up during the week, because they'll certainly need to utilize him, because the Steelers are going to try, just as the Dolphins are, try to run the snot out of the football, one would think, especially with the weather. It's supposed to be frigid, and it's just what the stand, and the Dolphins run defense, if anything, has been a little bit suspect throughout this year. So we'll get a few more answers, I think. And the biggest question is will Derrick Harmon play, Alex?
I hope so. They've treated him less so like a typical rookie, in the sense of he basically was the starter day one, which is not often the case even for first rounders in Pittsburgh. Usually that job is earned over time. So will they kind of put aside their general stance of, if you don't get reps for a young guy, you can't play? I would, assuming that he's healthy enough to play. Of course, if he's not healthy to go, then he's not healthy to go and you can't play him. But we'll see. Certainly would be huge if he was out there. Not to get too caught up into that minutia, because people will know the answers pretty quickly in a couple of hours. But who do you elevate? Are there going to be roster moves coming of IR or players released? Because you would think that MVS is going to get elevated again, but you want to also elevate an offensive lineman. As you said, you basically have to, whether that's David Sharp or Jack Driscoll or maybe even Stephen Jones. What about your cornerback depth right now? What's behind Brandon Echols and Asante Samuel Jr. and Joey Porter Jr.? Would you have to move Jalen Ramsey back down the corner, because there's really nothing there behind? Would you elevate Deshaun Jameson, which Pittsburgh has done once this season? You only get 2 elevations, so unless there's other roster moves coming, I'm not sure exactly how Pittsburgh's going to figure this thing out, but certainly will be worth watching.
Yeah, and because of the weather, it might MVS be needed to be elevated. We has kind of been feeling like it's been a given that will happen, based on the things that have transpired over the course of the last couple of weeks here, with them wanting to go to more veteran guys. But in a game where you might not have to, or it might be hard to push the football down the field a little bit more, might they even need MVS? So we're going to get a lot of answers here by the time the elevations get turned in, and we'll know exactly, will this team need. Well, I mean, it feels like they're going to have 2 elevations either way,
Sure.
assuming that someone, we'll see if anybody needs to go to IR and all like that. And if it is 2 straight elevations, well, then you're going to need 7 guys on the inactive list. Is Roman Wilson going to end up on the inactive list? What about your other wide receiver in Keyshawn Williams, who was inactive for this last game? So we already know there's going to be a handful of these guys inactive, along with T.J. Watt and Andres Pete, and who's the other one? James Pierre.
Yep.
Yeah. So 3 of them already given. Obviously, Will Howard will be the inactive emergency quarterback. So there's 4 right there. The only question is who are your other 3 potentially?
Yeah, some of the defensive linemen, one of the healthy guys, Logan Lee or Martin Rhodes, Harmon, if he can't play, obviously, then, basically you have two defensive linemen who won't dress in this game. That gets you to 6 right there, but we'll just have to see how it all shakes out. Certainly will be something worth watching. And you're right, is even a guarantee that MVS gets elevated, just given the context of this game and the need elsewhere with some injuries, all worth watching. We'll know that by 4 p.m. when the elevations are due. All right, Dave, anything else from Miami standpoint? Their health, of course, can't forget about that, but there isn't much to say. They're a pretty healthy bunch overall. Elijah Campbell, defensive back, is doubtful in this game, but David Achane, Devon Achane, the running back, is going to play in this one. Other guys, their long snapper, Jack Jones, their corner, Rasul Douglas, all those guys were full throughout the week, so they're gonna be good to go for this game.
Yeah, and obviously the key one in there is Devon Achane and all coming off of that rib injury against the Jets last week. It was kind of known a couple of days ago that he was probably going to fight through this, but they've got 3 running backs that they work through over there. But obviously the big one there is Achane, especially his ability to break off the big runs. They haven't done a good job offensively when it comes to explosive plays of 20 yards or more through the air, but boy, they sure have been able to stack the 10-yard runs, and Achane obviously been a big part of that. So he'll be out there, he'll be ready to go. I don't know whether or not he's going to wear anything on the ribs or anything like that. I would imagine he probably would, but that won't slow that guy down much.
Yeah, not much does. That guy's got track speed for days. All right, Dave, skipping the coordinators, talked about those guys on Friday, of course. So let's jump into our beat writer preview. Every week we try to have a beat writer and have a great one this week. And Hal Habib, who covers the Dolphins and Palm Beach Post. You can follow Hal on Twitter at Gunner Hal. That's GUNNERHAL. Let's take a pause and come back with Hal.
All right, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Monday morning, and that means later on this evening, tonight on Monday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers will host the Miami Dolphins in a very cold setting at Acrisure Stadium. And with the Miami Dolphins being the opponent on this Monday night, as usual, we have a beat writer who covers the opposing team in on the Terrible Podcast. And it's been a while since we've had our guest on. Today it is Hal Habib. Hal is a longtime Florida beat writer. He currently and has covered the Dolphins for the Palm Beach Post for several years, and before that he's obviously worked different various outlets in Florida there, but nobody knows the Dolphins probably inside and out the way Hal does. And once again, it's been since 2022 since we had Hal on the Terrible Podcast. So with that, Hal, good morning and welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Burr, it's cold up here, man.
I hear you.
How you guys doing?
Doing well. So pleased to have you back on again with us, Hal. And for those of you on Twitter, you can follow Hal on Twitter /X at Gunner Hal, GUNNERHAL. Hal, let's start with big picture here, and let me take you back to earlier in the season when the Dolphins lost to the, I think it was the Baltimore Ravens on a Thursday night, and they were, I believe, 2-7, I think, at the time there. There was a lot of speculation about going to be a lot of moves, including potentially maybe Mike McDaniel getting fired. Well, the team ended up only firing Chris Greer, the GM at the time. McDaniel obviously kept his job, and since then, this is a Miami Dolphins team that's gone 4-0 in that time. Let me start first and foremost. How surprised were you that McDaniel kept his job, during that change at 2-7? And, how has he done since? And what's been the biggest key to this Dolphins team going on a 4-0 run since then?
Well, I don't know if I was surprised that he kept his job at 2-7. I think it could have gone really either way at that point. He's been at this job, if you look at it, under, owner Steve Ross, he's been at this job about as long as any of the previous coaches under Ross. survive. So Steve's make or break point seems to be right around 4 years, give or take. And so he's given Mike the latitude to, see this season out, see what progresses, and then go from there. GM Chris Greer, as you mentioned, did not have that same thing going for him, and he's been replaced by Champ Kelly. Now, what happened at that point? Yeah, they were 2-7 coming off it was a 28-6 loss to Baltimore. And not only that, but they were facing the Buffalo Bills the next week. So it was sort of like the worst possible combination if you're Mike McDaniel, really. But hey, they came out, they played their best game to date at that point. They won 30-13, and things have been rosy ever since. But, they have had a couple of easy games, if there are easy games in the NFL, since the Buffalo game. And now, tonight, the Pittsburgh game is really going to be a test of how much stock do you put in that winning streak, and how much safer is Mike's job or isn't it? In terms of what triggered the change on the field since that game, and also you ought to back up just a tiny bit. They had a miserable. Oh my God, this was an awful loss in Cleveland earlier. That was back in mid-October, and they looked absolutely pathetic in that game. But right around that point, there seemed to be a regroup within the building. And one of the things they decided was that they weren't going to win or lose on Tua's left arm. They were going to put the fortunes of the offense, at least, in the hands of Devon Achane, and that has turned out just perfectly. Mike was a running back guru to some extent with the 49ers before he was hired by Miami, and we thought he was going to bring this fancy running attack when he came to Miami, but Tyreek Hill got in the way there. But Mike kind of rediscovered or went back to those running roots, and it's really, done wonders. And at the same time, the defense, which was really having a bad stretch at the start of the season under Anthony Weaver, the defense now has played really, really well, started getting takeaways. And between the way the defense kind of awoke and the way the running game came alive, that explains the 4-game winning streak.
It's hard to say, called the loss of Tyreek Hill due to injury and addition by subtraction there. But as you stated there, and the film bears this out, they're going back to a lot. They've gone back to a lot of heavier personnel. We see a lot of fullback with Alec Ingold in there. Obviously, Waller's been banged up, but they have him back. They'll use a lot of extra offensive linemen with multiple tight ends. And you're right. Yeah, they're leaning a lot on that running game with Devon Achane. He's been brilliant. They've got 2 other great running backs, even after Achane left that game against the Jets last week with a rib injury. You got Jaylen Wright coming off the bench, having a 100-yard gain on top of it. I mean, this is what they have to do, and this could play huge into tonight's game where it's cold, and the team that runs the football the best is probably going to win this game. So is that the way you view this going into this game, is that we're going to see a lot of what we've seen on tape from the Miami Dolphins the last several weeks, and when they do put the ball in the air, probably going to be this rhythmic passing that Tua likes to do, where he probably goes with his first read if it's there, and a real timing stuff over the middle of the field.
Exactly. I do think it's going to be a battle of 2 running attacks. And, it will be interesting to see if and when. I mean, let's face it, sooner or later, someone is going to have some sort of success against Achane and this running attack. And when that happens and the game revolves around Tua being able to put the ball in the air and get it to Waddle, get it to Darren Waller, who's back, after another stint on the injured list. Tua has really, really struggled in cold weather. And if you're a Steeler fan going to the game tonight or watching on TV, That's probably what you're looking for. If the Steelers can get on top early, if they can shut down the running attack of Miami, and it really comes down to what is Tua going to do? Can he pull this game out? That's probably the dream scenario for Mike Tomlin right now, I would think. Tua really hasn't won a game when it's been this cold. And, I think back to some of the trips we made to Buffalo, that awful, awful wild card game in Kansas City where people froze to death. Those were some days when Tua was just not effective.
Al, speaking of Tua, tied for the NFL lead, 14 interceptions this season. What's been the theme of those mistakes? Are they on him? Are they on others? Dave likes to talk about the interceptions should be broken down into which ones are really on the quarterback or receivers if they ever drop passes. What is the theme of why Tua has been picked so often this year?
At one point, he was setting all kinds of accuracy records over the past few years. And to see what's going on this year, it's like a different guy out there. I think his confidence has taken a hit, for one. You ask about the interceptions, are they on him? I would go a step further and say, if you look at the Jets game, there were 2 throws he made deep in his own territory that easily could have been intercepted and potentially could have been pick sixes. And so not only has he thrown a lot of interceptions, but there have been a few cases where he's gotten away with throws that really he shouldn't have gotten away with. And it comes down really to decision making, because there was one play in particular that stood out for me where he's throwing to a guy who, even if Wright had caught the ball, he wasn't going to go anywhere. And so it was a major, major risk. He was basically flanked by 2 different defenders, and Tua just kind of tossed it up there, and sort of like, "Hey, Jaylen, have at it." Well, that's not going to work.
Is Aaron Brewer the key to the Dolphins' running game for all the talent in that backfield? It feels like Brewer, in that athleticism that he has in space, really unlocks another level and allows the ball to get out on the perimeter. How important has his development and his acquisition from Tennessee been for Miami's run game?
Well, you're talking to someone who really thinks a lot of Brewer. I think he's played really well for Miami. The latest, for what it's worth, I saw the latest Pro Bowl voting, and he wasn't even in the top 10 centers.
Mm.
And I was like, what? Um, I think he's had a really, really strong season. Obviously, at center, he's anchoring the line for everybody, calling the signals. But I don't want to shortchange some of the other guys on the line who have done really well. Austin Jackson is back now off of injured reserve, and I think that he adds a lot to the running attack, especially. Patrick Paul on the left side is just a gigantic human being, and he's had a good season. One guy who needs to be talked about is a rookie, Jonah Sabayanaya, who started off. Jonah had some major struggles at the early part of the season, and he was sort of a lightning rod for the offensive line at that point. But he's starting to find his way, and you got to give offensive linemen time to adjust to the NFL life, I think. And Jonah is starting to do that, starting to use that size and his athleticism to his advantage. He hasn't figured it all out. He's certainly not a finished product, but he's helping along the way. And then we haven't even talked about the 6th offensive lineman, Daniel Brunskill. And you guys are probably going to hear the words number 64 is eligible over and over tonight. But that's how they've been using him. As you could call him a 6th offensive lineman. You can call him a tight end, a blocking tight end. Call him whatever you want, but it's effective when they throw him in there.
I think sometimes you'll even see him in the backfield, I think, on tape in the last couple of games as well, too. This is definitely going to be an eligible lineman type game because the Steelers use Spencer Anderson to report eligible quite a bit as well, too. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Hal, can you talk about the development of Malik Washington, sixth-round draft pick in 2024, really starting to make his mark in the NFL, especially with Tyreek Hill being injured? What have you seen, that's allow him to become more effective in this offense?
A lot of things. He's really made an impact as a return man. He can make people miss. I think that he's really a mature professional and goes about his business as such, and so that really bodes well for him and his development. I'd like to see him catching some more passes, but he's coming along. I have a lot of respect for Malik and what he can offer. I think that it'll be interesting to see Malik Washington in another year, another 2 years as he continues to develop, because he really does have a lot of good things going for him. So Miami is lucky to have him.
As underrated, or at least when it comes to Pro Bowl votes and all, when you talk about the offensive side of football, we talked about Aaron Brewer, and boy, he really does stick out on tape. But when you flip over to the defensive side of football, Jordan Brooks, man, having a fantastic year. I think currently second in the NFL in total tackles, and not by much. In other words, tonight he very well could overtake the league. I think in total tackles. What's been the key for just talk a little bit about the season that he's had. I don't know where he is in the Pro Bowl voting right now, but anybody that has approaching 150 total tackles at this time of season, that really says a lot.
It does. You wonder, how does a guy go through a 17-game season at that kind of pace? If they say that every Monday morning, it's like you've been in a car accident. Think about think about what Jordan Brooks has been through. It's not unusual to see Jordan coming into the locker room, kind of soaking wet, and sometimes that's because he's covered in sweat. But he's also a big fan of the hot tub and the cold tub back there, and I can certainly understand why. Um, you will not meet a more serious individual. You go up to him and even if you didn't have any idea who Jordan Brooks is, you would probably figure out in a hurry. You're talking to a football player who takes his job incredibly seriously. Every now and then you might get a chuckle out of him, but for the most part, dead serious guy, and very active, obviously. And I think he's benefiting now as the defensive line is starting to gel much more than it was at the beginning of the year. And so that enables Jordan to do his thing. And Dothan next to him is also a guy who you can't underestimate. There was a game a couple of weeks ago when it came down to a 2-point conversion try, and the coach's communication system was going out. And basically, Dotson had to, right on the fly, had to call the defense and say, you do this, you do that. And it all worked out. They made the stop. They got the win over New Orleans. Shouldn't have come down to that, but hey, he was critical there. So there's two linebackers on the inside are doing a pretty good job for Miami right now.
Before I turn it over to Alex for a couple of more here, there's several little storylines obviously going into this game. The Steelers won't have T.J. Watt for this one. There's obviously the cold weather. There's the running game. But Mika Fitzpatrick, obviously former Pittsburgh Steeler, and before that was a Miami Dolphin, and then obviously Jalen Ramsey switching sides, coming over from Miami as well too. You've been around Miami a long time. You saw Mika the first time he was with the Dolphins. He obviously wanted out at that time. wasn't liking the way he was used at that first trip in. He comes back to Miami, seems to be settling into more of a nickel role with them. What kind of differences do you see now in Minka versus the Minka that you saw the first time in Miami, and then the person, I guess, and then how are you seeing Minka being used this time around in Miami and her defense?
Yeah, they moved him around this year. Partially, it's important to keep in mind that this secondary was really thrown together on the fly. I thought for sure Miami was going to go heavily on the secondary in the draft, and they did not. They waited until Saturday to really address that. And so Minka has sort of been the one constant, even though he's moved around, he's been the one constant. Well, the defense kind of comes together and they figure out what they have in guys like Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones, who they, picked up off the street. And those two guys have performed very well. And so Minka has, I think, had a good season. And I think that as the season's gone on, he's been getting better and better, probably feeling more comfortable with the guys around him. And so, hey, when that trade went down, if you had asked me who was the least likely guy to be traded to the Miami Dolphins, Minka might have been the guy who came to mind.
Surprised us too.
Yeah, it probably surprised Minka. I mean, trying to get Minka to talk about any of that is impossible. He didn't talk about it when he finally came to the microphone after the trade was made. And then the other day when we talked to him, it was a brief conversation. I think the PR people cut it off before we could really get into the how's it feel to be facing your old team questions. I don't think Minka minded not having to answer that. So, does this game mean that much more to him? How could it not, really? Just like for Jonnu, how could it not mean that much more to him? And the same with Ramsey. So I always enjoy it when guys say, oh, it's just another game going into it. And then afterward, you go up to them, how did it feel beating your old team? Well, it was great. I really wanted to drill those guys, So, yeah.
Definitely. Hal, a couple D-line questions for you. Give me the skinny on Zach Sealer. Feels like an underrated name from the NFL at large. What's his impact? And the first-round rookie, Kenneth Grant. Pittsburgh had a lot of interest in him out of Michigan. He was off the board before Pittsburgh was on the clock. What has Grant's role been, and how's he coming along?
It's interesting that you put the two in one question because they really do go together. I think that Zach was trying to bring the rookie along so much early in the year that he wasn't able to be Zach Sealer. And, for those who don't know his story, Zach was let go by the Ravens, picked up by the Dolphins several years ago, and has steadily worked his way up to the point where last year he was the obvious choice as team MVP. And then this year he started off slow, and we're kind of like, where's Zach? What's going on with Zach? And Anthony Weaver and Mike McDaniel would always say he's having to adjust and bring the guys around him along. And so that's affecting Zach's play. Well, now, you look around, Grant is certainly not a finished product. There's more work to be done there with KG. But Zach is looking like Zach again over these past several games. And that could be an issue for the Steelers. And not only that, but Zach is really working in concert with guys like Bradley Chubb on the outside, and they're really having an impact. Also, I should mention Chop Robinson on the outside, who's really seems to be a guy who gets better as seasons go along. So all of that's coming together. A lot of respect for Zach Sealer. He's a true pro, and he is probably in the eyes of the national scene in the NFL, he's probably a very underrated defensive lineman.
No doubt about that. My last question for you, Hal, then I'll let Dave finish things out. This is a very big picture question. If you could zoom out for a second, some have said it's hard to build a culture in Miami because of the distractions, the nightlife, the city. I think Tyreek Hill has kind of made a reference to that in the past. Is that a fair critique? And if so, how do the Dolphins overcome that? A franchise that has not won a playoff game since 2000. Is that geography issue? How does this team kind of get over that hump to really build a culture and sustain going forward?
Well, I would say that if it's an issue for the Dolphins, it shouldn't be. And my best comeback to that is if geography is what's holding back the Miami Dolphins, how then do you explain the Miami Heat winning what, 3 NBA championships? How
Fair.
do you explain the Florida Panthers winning back-to-back Stanley Cups? How do you explain Inter Miami, for that matter, just winning the MLS title? You know, I purposely leave out the Miami Marlins. But, but, you know, if all those other teams have figured out a way to not only win, but especially in the case of the Heat and the Panthers, to build outstanding cultures within their locker rooms, then the Dolphins have no excuse.
One more question on defense, and I'll go another direction here. How much do the Dolphins switch up sides with Chubb and, say, Chop Robinson? The Steelers are probably going to start Dylan Cook at left tackle. It'll be his first NFL start if indeed that happens here. What can we expect with the edge rushers and switching sides?
I don't know if they're going to be doing that so much, but they will be switching faces because, you know, you'll see Matthew Judon in there as well. So they like to keep their guys fresh. That's more of a thing too. The rotation is more of a factor, obviously, in Miami when it's 100 degrees out there. But in this weather, I would think that they're going to do whatever it is that they really think is best, and they'll play their normal, you know, rotation. And Chubb and Chop especially are the guys who I would think the Steelers would be most worried about, really.
And Matthew Judon should be easy to pick out because he usually wears those red sleeves and all, number 8 and all as well too. There, what is your? How safe is Mike McDaniel? Does it all depend on what happens in these final 4 games as far as the future of Mike McDaniel? Do you think he's going to be back? And I guess the another question to kind of wrap up with is there going to be moving forward without Tua in 2026 at quarterback?
Well, Tua's contract kind of forces the Dolphins to hold on to him for another year, really. You know, that becomes a big question, though, beyond the 2026 season. And it really, it's not just his performance, but the fact that he's a $50 million a year quarterback. And do the Dolphins feel that they're A, getting their money's worth, and B, can they get to the level they want to get and at least start winning some playoff games with Tua, you know, running the show? As for Mike, I think it's a close call. I think that if they continue on this stretch, the last few games, to, let's say they win, I don't know, 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4, that Steve Ross might take a step back and say they finished pretty strong after a 2-7 start. He managed to change his ways. He started relying on a running attack that, you know, wouldn't have been the case a couple of years ago when they abandoned the run. So Ross at that point might say, "Yeah, let's give Mike another run and see what happens." Or he might say, "Hey, this guy's had, you know, all these years and they haven't won a playoff game. It's time to start anew." You know, Steve Ross is not the youngest guy in the world, and he may be getting more and more impatient. So that's a factor. the fact that the schedule turns a lot tougher now, that also does not work in Mike's favor necessarily. It's not just Pittsburgh. They got to play Tampa. And, they close against New England. And there's been some thinking, well, maybe New England doesn't have anything to play for. Well, after yesterday, maybe New England will have a lot to play for. And so that trip to Gillette may be, pretty tough outing for Miami.
All right, big game for both teams on Monday Night Football at Acrisure. The Steelers have won 22 straight on Monday night at home. Last time the Steelers lost at home was October 14th, 1991. The Steelers are breaking out their color rush uniforms tonight. They're breaking out the cold weather tonight as well. How do you see this game going tonight? And don't go ahead and throw out a final score if you will.
I actually did pick for our paper. I picked the Steelers to end Miami's winning streak. You're testing me on the score that I predicted because I did this prediction so many days ago. But as we speak, I am refreshing my memory.
Was it a close game? Did you have a close game, Hal? Is that what your general thought was?
24-20 is what I picked. But I also, at the time that I turned in that pick, I thought T.J. Watt would be on the field.
Right.
I'm sorry that he won't be. I enjoy watching him play, but I'll stick with that. I think the Steelers will freeze out the Dolphins in more ways than one.
All right, and tell folks what they can find over at the Palm Beach post from you ahead of tonight's game.
The first thing on there they'll see is a look at Rasul Douglas, who is the reigning AFC Defensive Player of the Week, who says he works for free. I don't work for free, but he says he works for free. And read the column and make of that what you will.
All right, Hal, look, it's been a while. It's been, like I said, 3 years. We're happy to have you back on the Terrible Podcast with us, and we'll have to see which way the schedules and all go in the future. But happy to have you back next time these two teams get together. So stay warm, enjoy the game, and we appreciate you being back on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
I enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for having me.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Our special thanks to Hal for his great insight on the Miami Dolphins. Like you said, Dave, it had been a couple of years since we've gotten to speak with him, but he's got just terrific insight, really good, concise but informative answers. So appreciate his time. Again, follow his work over at the Palm Beach Post and follow Hal on Twitter at Gunner Hal. That's GUNNERHAL.
Yeah, appreciate him tucked away, and I imagine in a Pittsburgh hotel this morning, cold as can be. It's been 3 years since we've had him on. It's always good to be able to reach out to people like this to have them come on the show to preview the opposition, and hope several of you take time out before the game tonight and get on Twitter along with Margie and thank Hal for coming on the podcast today. So glad to have him.
All right, Dave, let's preview this game. Steelers and Dolphins kicking off 8:15 p.m. tonight at a frigid Acrisure Stadium, maybe the coldest game of the year that Pittsburgh will play. Steelers, of course, 7-6, still in first place in the division, but Baltimore hot on their heels. Miami trying to keep very faint playoff hopes alive at 6-7, but winners of their last 4. And we'll spare you the 6-7 meme jokes. Dave, do you even know what that is? Are you familiar with that?
I do. I don't know the specific. I don't know if it means anything other than it's just something that the kids do and got behind. I don't know. I don't guess the true meaning before it, but I know it when I see it. How about that?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I barely understand it, but we'll spare you the jokes. Pittsburgh trying to make that 6-8 this week. So let's talk about the Miami Dolphins offense. It's really been firing on all cylinders as of late. Tua's been a little bumpy this year, but certainly this group playing better as of late. But, in past years, it was the high-flying pass game of Tua and Waddle and Tyreek Hill and all the speed at receiver, the downfield passing ability. This run game, I think, is built for the cold. I think they're a team that can play in the cold because they are a run-oriented outfit. There's a lot of combinations of these college spread systems where they can spread you out, get the ball in the perimeter, do some really fun, inventive things offensively, but then also play some old-school power football with a 6 offensive lineman, with a fullback. And so stopping Devon Achane is going to be the biggest key in this game. Not letting the ball get out on the perimeter is going to be the biggest key. The corners must tackle well. Safeties must fill the alley. The edge rushers must set that edge and turn the ball back inside. For all the talk about the speed and pass game, it really starts with the run game, Dave.
Yeah, and we've talked a couple of times about everything that the Rams have gone through and the way Sean McVay has made the shift from being an 11 personnel guy to being, a 12 or a 21 type personnel, or even sometimes 13 personnel. Hats, you got to tip your hat to what Mike McDaniel and the changes that he's made, and specifically after they losing such a great explosive player in Tyreek Hill. And I thought Hal did a good job of saying that, look, at his core, Mike McDaniel is kind of that heavier, or can be that heavier personnel guy. And when you look at it on tape over the last couple of games, and specifically since this team lost Tyreek Hill, just the usage of the different personnel groupings. Look, they still have the talent where they can roll out the 11 personnel if they need to, especially now that they have Darren Waller back, and everybody knows Waller's one of those tight end / wide receivers, and you can use them multifaceted. But in addition to Jalen Waddle and Cedric Wilson Jr. and Malik Washington, when they need to run 11 personnel, they can go large as well too. And Hal did a great job of talking about the extra offensive linemen that they're bringing in there. You'll see a lot of Alec Ingold in this game. You will see, boy, who else? Greg Dulcich in the game a lot. Julian Hill, another number 89, another blocking tight end that they'll use, and they have no qualms about going heavy up front and then just running out of that. They'd love to get Achane out to the edge. One thing that stuck out on tape is a lot of pistol with Tua at quarterback there, and then what you'll see sometimes is 3 additional people in the backfield, 2 offset to Tua, and then one behind them in pistol, and they'll do various different things out of there with some misdirection. They'll run the toss out of there. They'll run misdirection to a swing out, kind of an escort screen out to the other side. They are just very, very multiple out of very few kind of personnel formations, if you will, there. So they give you a lot of different eye candy to have to pay attention to out of the same kind of formations, and they'll run different plays out of that makes them kind of hard to track. And when you have the speed that they have, especially in Achane, and then such a good lead blocker in Ingold, it really unlocks their running game overall. And you can't, good on Hal to point out, and to point out Aaron Brewer. We talked about a lot of good centers that this team, the Steelers defense, has faced this year, and Aaron Brewer is definitely an underrated one. Boy, he pops out on film, the way that athleticism, he'll get off a duo type block, and he can really get to the second level quite easily and make an impact. Boy, I don't know how many, there were 3 or 4, I think, pancakes, especially one, I think, against the Jets down there at the goal line. If you're not careful, this guy will end up on top of you at the second level, and he does a great job of getting out in space. In general, they'll pull him out as well and get him out on the edge right after the snap. So he's a big component of their running game. They got pedigree guys in obviously in Cole Strange, Patrick Paul, former second round draft pick at left tackle, Josh Savanea, or Jonah Savanea, who Hal talked about at left guard. What a matchup between Cameron Hayward in this game. So that's something to look out there. But look, it all boils down to the Dolphins want to run the football tonight. They're going to try to lean on their 3 running backs of Achane, Jaylen Wright, who came alive against the Jets after Achane left. And then you got a big bruising guy in Ollie Gordon, a rookie 6th-round draft pick there. So they want to stay ahead of the chains. They want to take a lot of the pressure off of Tua in the passing game. And when they do pass, Tua likes to stay in rhythm. He likes to get the snap. He likes to get his first read, and a lot of times he likes to go over the middle of the field being in rhythm here. So not only do you need to keep this Dolphins defense out of third and very manageable, you need to try to your best in passing situations to get Tua out of rhythm, because that seems to be the where Tua struggles the most there. And the other aspect is his accuracy. And you asked about the interceptions and how many's on him. He does put the ball in harm's way quite a bit, and he's gotten away with it here in the last 3 or 4 games. The Steelers going to have to make him pay if they get the chance to get their hands on the football. So a potent offense. Malik Washington's come along. Obviously, Jalen Waddle can be a big play guy. And then Darren Waller's just another X factor in there, especially when you need to change move. This is a guy that can function in as attached to the line of scrimmage, or you can spread him out and he can deliver a big play, specifically down in the red zone for touchdowns as well.
It's a really fun offense to watch, and it's starting to find its stride right now. It reminds me of Chicago in a lot of ways and how multiple they are, the eye candy, the window dressing they like to use, the overall offensive line athleticism. As you said, Brewer, he literally pops on tape because he is so athletic. He is an ideal Arthur Smith type of offensive lineman, a little undersized, but super athletic, whether you're talking zone game, perimeter game. He can pull, as you said. They really do a good job letting him be the lead guy, but you have Al Gingord, the fullback, used 35% of the time. Brunskill, the 6th offensive lineman, he's a former college tight end at San Diego State, and so he's like Spencer Anderson with that really good feet out there in space. So they really prioritize having good, big, athletic people up front that can make plays on the move. They've had, 140 plus yards rushing in 5 of their last 6 games. So it is a run-first type of team, which is why I think the whole storyline about them playing in the cold might be a little overstated, because this is not a throw the ball around the yard type of offense. At least it doesn't have to be that. As you said, with Tua, the 14 interceptions, the interception rate is really, really high. How talked about. He gets away with a couple of throws that probably should have been interceptions as well. As you said, rhythmic type of passing game. No quarterback gets the ball out quicker than Tua, even faster than Aaron Rodgers. And I've had the stat that I wrote about this morning. When Tua's snap to throw time is under 2.4 seconds this season, Dave, Miami is 4-2. When it's above 2.4 seconds, Miami is 2-5. Now, some of that is obvious in terms of if you're backing them up, if they're not in rhythm, then of course their offense will suffer. Their chances to win suffers too. But that's kind of the line. 2.4 seconds and above is where you want Tua to be. So of course that means stopping the run, but it also means being able to reroute receivers and force Tua to a second read and disguise coverages, make him hold on to that football. So it might not seem much. A tenth of a second, though, in the NFL is an eternity. And so if Pittsburgh can get Tua to be a little more hesitant and have to stand in that pocket, that's good news for Pittsburgh's defense.
All right, we interrupt this recap for a little bit of news. Seems like we might have got our answer about Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette's reporting on Twitter now that the Steelers are going to sign Marquez Valdes-Scantling to their 53-man roster. He goes on to say that he was going to be elevated from the practice squad from tonight's game, which would have been his second of 3 allotted elevations. So it sounds like later on today we can expect that to happen, and we'll just have to see what the corresponding move, if indeed he does go to the 53, and if an additional elevation in addition to an offensive lineman might happen to that. Tom Pelissero is also reporting that the Steelers have added Jaylen Warren to the injury report as questionable tonight with an illness for tonight's game. So your lead back in Jaylen Warren, a guy that you expect or wanted to have a big game tonight, seems like he's in question now, being added because of an illness. It's that time of year, I guess, when it comes to stuff going around. So we'll have to see how that plays out later on this afternoon.
Yeah, Dave, unfortunate there for Warren. Hopefully something he can power through, get an IV before the game. So it's always hard to tell in that questionable tag, which is why they should bring back the probable tag, because I'd like that just to determine whether you're questionable or probable to play in this game. So we'll see, obviously, if Warren cannot play or is limited in any form or fashion, then more Kenneth Gainwell, and also, of course, more Caleb Johnson, who could see the field in a game where running the ball might be the priority for both teams.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. Maybe we get a little. I mean, you doubt that they would elevate a running back at this point, but stranger things have happened. If they do elevate a running back, that's almost a sure sign that they don't think Warren will be able to go tonight. But I suppose we should expect somebody to get cut with MVS coming to the 53-man roster, and with him coming to the 53-man roster, you obviously expect him to dress and play Monday night against the Dolphins.
Right, because they're at 53 right now. I keep losing track when they're at 52 spots or 53, but I think they're full
I believe they are full,
because of Dylan
and
Cook,
yeah,
Anderson. Yeah.
yeah. Keyshawn Williams might they might end up
Yeah.
waiving him, Keyshawn Williams, tonight.
Or one of the defensive linemen, maybe Martin Rhodes or whoever wouldn't get the hat, even if Derrick Harmon does not play. So those might be the suspects there, but we'll get the confirmation by, again, 4 p.m. You guys may know by the time you're listening to this. So any other final thoughts here for the Dolphins offense, Dave? As you said, rhythmic passing game, like to throw to the sticks on third down, like to use some play action, two-man routes, max protect type of stuff. They've not gotten the deep ball going, but you have some speed there. Waddle, you have Darren Waller, an athletic tight end who's coming off of IR. He's made an impact for them. He's got, 4 touchdowns in limited action this season coming out of retirement. So there's still some threats there in the pass game, but the run game is where things start.
It's going to make for a long night for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense if they can't bottle up that running game, because you get that Miami offense in third and very manageable situations. That makes them even more deadly when it comes to being able to move the chains overall there. So yeah, I mean, you got two teams that are going to try to run the football against each other and stay into those third and manageable situations. I don't know what the wind's going to be tonight. I haven't even seen a report on that, but I imagine throwing the football could be quite difficult. And you want to talk about if Miami having to win this game via the arm of Tua. He hasn't taken off with the football a lot this season, and for obvious reasons, he's dealt with a lot of concussions in the past. So I'm going to doubt that you're going to have to really spy Tua all that much overall. But and on the flip side, I don't know how much two deep safety you want to play. I think you want to have your safeties up in the box. It sounds like this team will have Kyle Duggar back for this game after he missed the last game. That could be huge. Your inside line, you're going to have to get off blocks and you're going to have to get to the outside or inside on A chain there. And your inside linebackers, Patrick Queen and Holcomb and Malik Harrison, those guys are going to have a lot of tackles and not leave it up to the secondary to have to make a lot of these tackles.
Yeah, even without TJ Watt. And you might miss TJ Watt more as a run defender in this game than you will as a pass rusher because of how good he is against the run and how great he is out there on the edge. But that's going to be really paramount for those guys and Herbig and Highsmith and Jack Sawyer, the defensive line, with Tua getting the ball out quickly, get your hands up in throwing lanes, tip a pass, bat something. Of course, they're very good at that. No one better than Cam Hayward, but that's going to be another critical thought in this game. If you can't get to the quarterback because that ball's coming out so quickly, can you impact the pass game by getting a hand on a pass that maybe lands in the hands of a Steelers defender?
Absolutely. So stop the run, stop the run, stop the run.
No doubt about that. For the Miami Dolphins defense, it may not be the strongest unit, but again, they're picking things up. They've been, I think, a whole lot better as of late. What was the stat that I had here? They're allowing 23 points per game, but they've not allowed more than 17 points in each of their last 4 games. Of course, all being wins for the Dolphins during this streak. They had a really tough start to the year, allowing 31 plus in their first 3, but they've really kind of battened down the hatches as of late.
Yeah, they are a penetrating one gap up front. They got a couple of rookies up there, and Kenneth Grant, who we learned a lot about during the pre-draft processes last year. He's game by game seem to be getting bigger or getting better. Jordan Phillips, 5th round draft pick of theirs, over the nose. They're a 3-4 team overall. Zach Seiler, who you talked about having a good year. They've got two obviously known edge rushers, former 1st round pick and Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb on the other side there, coming over from Denver a couple of years ago. And look, you just cannot talk about this defense the way I was talking to Hal without talking about Jordan Brooks. This guy is all over the field. I think he's got 140 something total tackles. I would imagine by the end of tonight, he'll be back in the league lead as far as tackles go. He is really the heart and soul of that defense overall, specifically against the run. He can move out in space quite fluidly. And then Matthew Judon is another guy that will rotate in there off the edge. Should be able to easy to pick him out with those red sleeves he always likes to wear. And Willie Gay Jr. needs no introduction as well too. Coming in and filling in some at the linebacker position here. So this should be a familiar, at least front, kind of what the Steelers see. They're predominantly have been kind of a two deep safety team as a whole. Play a lot of cover two. They play very, very little straight up man, but they will mix in some match coverages, cover six type situation, and then Minka Fitzpatrick, the way he's being used over the nickel and slot. You've seen a lot of that this year as well too. This is a defense though that has had some problems against the run throughout the year. So the key is getting off those duo blocks when you use that, or these zone blocks, trying to get to the second level and getting a body on Jordan Brooks in the middle there. They can be run on, and the Steelers have to win this game on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they're a penetrating group. They want to get upfield. They want to disrupt with that defensive line, those linebackers that knife in and make plays. So can you find the cutback lane on inside zone runs? I think it's going to be the challenge for whoever's toting the rock tonight, be it Warren, should he play, or Gainwell or Caleb Johnson. That's going to be the key. I think that's probably the best way for Pittsburgh to run the ball, is trying to find that backside cut on those zone runs to kind of counter some of the aggressive downfield action that the Dolphins like to play in coverage. I think it's a really interesting secondary. Play a lot of people. They can play a lot of defensive backs. Minka's now playing a lot more slot corner and nickel than he was in Pittsburgh. He's not played a ton of free safety this season, so it's kind of interesting to see how he's being used there. There's a lot of match coverages, a lot of disguises. Pittsburgh has typically struggled against teams who match routes and play that match coverage. Again, go back to the Bears game a little bit, the Eagles game last year as well. So can Pittsburgh overcome that? It's going to be the challenge.
When you look at their rush defense specifically, where they've been best really has been where teams have tried to attack them the most. 124 runs labeled as up the middle against this Dolphins defense. That's the third most in the NFL. The average gain allowed is 4.1 yards. That ranks them 18th overall directionally up the middle. Everywhere else, this defense has really been had their problems, specifically left guard, runs to left guard, and runs to left tackle, and runs to left end. They are 30th in the league at 5.36 yards per carry on runs to left guard. Their defense is 31st in the NFL on runs to left tackle at 6.03 yards. And on runs around left end, there's only been 35 against them, but they've given up 6.66 yards per carry, ranked 27th overall. They're not that much better on runs from right guard and out. So you look, what does that tell you? Run away as much as you can from Jordan Brooks. I think is what that says overall. So it will be very disheartening if we don't see the Steelers offense have some success on the ground, specifically with their heavy packages. We're going to see Spencer Anderson in this game as an eligible offensive lineman, even though Dylan Cook is making his first start. You should see Darnell Washington next to him quite a bit in this game as well too. So the Steelers have got to win this up front with the running game, and everything's on the table except maybe a lot of runs, high diddle up the middle. Now, as far as the passing game goes with them, it's quite astounding to look how teams have attacked them to the short right portion of the field. 132 passes to the short right portion of the field have given up 6.89 yards per play. That's ranked 30th in the NFL. And teams are really completing a high percentage of the passes. I think somewhere around 80%. So I would imagine the Steelers in the passing game, you see some of these screens. Kenneth Gainwell, you could probably get him involved in some of those escort screens and all like that. But I would imagine the Steelers are going to try to run the ball everywhere but up the middle and try to attack this in the passing game, short right area of the field.
Yeah, the stats don't always add that context, but I imagine those are just blitz beaters because the Dolphins blitz 30% of the time. DC Anthony Weaver's a pretty aggressive guy. There's a good pass rush up front. So I imagine, you see the DBs come off. Minka will blitz. I think maybe Douglas will blitz. Their DBs have 3 sacks combined this season. So it's probably just trying to beat the blitz out there in the flat and trying to counter some of those aggressive mug looks, those creepers and sim pressures that the Dolphins and basically any defense in the NFL likes to utilize. So that's going to be the key there. Minka's been heating up. I know the numbers may not show just 1 interception this year, but he's had more splash plays, had that pick 2 on that 2-point conversion against the Saints a couple weeks ago. So I think
that looked a lot like the pick 6 that he had against the Colts several years ago.
Sure did. And Hal talked about him getting more comfortable in that defense, that secondary, trying to find a little more cohesion in the back end. So, that's obviously, I think Pittsburgh can throw down the middle in principle more because Minka's not patrolling that. Of course, will Pittsburgh do it? They have not been doing that for a decade now, but I don't know if Minka's going to take that away innately, but he's going to be a guy that'll match up in the slot, probably get on DK because Pittsburgh tried to put DK in the slot to change his alignment this year. So could you get some Minka on DK matchups? That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, and as far as their pass rush goes, Bradley Chubb has been kind of their most effective. He leads the team in sacks with 6.5. He has 16 quarterback hits to go along with it. But as a team, they only have 31 sacks, and they're spread against, 12, 13 different people there. And Bradley Chubb is the only one that has more than 4. I think Tyrell Dodson is second on the team with 4. So it comes from a lot of different people here. But Bradley Chubb, obviously, their 2 edge guys are the ones that you got to keep at bay. And it'll be interesting to see how much they do decide to blitz against a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who's pretty much seen it all. And in a game where they have been beat out to the edges and all because of blitzing like that.
And that's interesting. Dodson, an off-ball linebacker with 4 sacks, is certainly something worth noting and speaks to some of the pressure looks that Miami likes to generate. But I really think in coverage, can you read it well? That's why you have some of these veteran receivers like Thielen, like now MBS getting the call up, to face some of these more complex coverages that disguises the invert too, the palms and 2-trap stuff, the just again matching these routes. And so you want some veteran guys out there that can be on the same page, the quarterback and receivers reading and adjusting the routes in concert and in coordination. So that's going to be key because you don't want that interception because receiver runs the wrong route, has a bad sight adjustment, and Rodgers wants the ball to go one way and the receiver goes the other, and that turns into a big play the other way. So just being on the same page is going to be important.
They have done a pretty good job defensively when it comes to giving up pass plays of that equal, explosive plays of 20 yards or more. NFL rankings as far as they go there. Where are they here? They've given up 30, I think, in total, and only or no, I'm sorry, that's the offense. They only have 30 on offense, so they haven't been that explosive in the passing game on offense. As far as defense goes, where am I listing here?
They've allowed 35 completions.
Yeah, 35 of those, and they're towards the bottom of the league. They are towards the top of the league as far as not allowing a lot of those there. So they're a hard team to explosive play through the air.
Yeah, their run defense has been weaker, and so I think both teams' focus will be running the ball. Which team will run better out of their 6 offensive line package may be a story of this game. Also, a lot of stunts up front from the defensive line to just alert that the offensive line must be on the same page, including Dylan Cook making his first start. And Miami is, number 5 in red zone defense. Pittsburgh's number 7 in red zone offense. So good on good there. Which unit will win out inside the 20, of course, is going to be key in this game.
Here's another interesting stat for StatHead when it comes to the explosive plays that they have given up of 20 yards or more through the air. 35 in total. They are tops in the league as far as what the average is meaning they've given up the lowest average on those plays, just 26.3 yards gained on those 35 explosive plays. So when they do at least get beat for a 20-yard explosive play, it's not like they're giving up huge ones.
Yeah, fair enough. Any other final thoughts here on Miami-Dade special teams? Got a good punter in Jake Bailey, decent kicker in Riley Patterson. Returner, you mentioned him, Malik Washington. He's been good in the punt return game, and they've been generally strong across the board in kick returns as well.
Yeah, but didn't they give up a punt return touchdown against the Jets just last week?
I will check. I know Washington has a touchdown for himself this year. Yes, the Jets did run back a punt late in the first quarter last week. So yeah, their coverage units I didn't study too much, but there's certainly something on tape there Pittsburgh could hopefully exploit with Calvin Austin.
All right. They got a kicker in Patterson that's got a good enough leg. It'd be interesting to see, obviously, playing at Acrisure, how that might impact things there. This is going to come down to, and look, Miami was only 2 of 10 on third downs in that game against the Jets. Now the Jets were 1 of 12 on third down in that game, but you got to get this Jets offense in third and long situations, because that's going to be your best bet to get off the field. And obviously, to do that, you're going to have to stop the run on the early downs there.
Yep, that's going to be the key. All right, Dave, any other final thoughts? If not, we can basically, I think, just pick this game. Or do you want to talk Week 15 at large quickly? What do you want to talk about first here?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get our picks out of the way, and then we'll wrap up talking about what happened in the NFL over the weekend here.
All right, Dave, for my pick, I'll go first. And I never have a great sense of these games, as proven by my lack of success picking these games this year, but I see some of that similarities between Chicago and Miami. Now, the difference is Caleb Williams is not necessarily the precision, rhythmic passer that Tua is. The ball gets out a lot quicker in the pass game in Miami than it does Chicago, but I see some of the window dressing, the flavor offensively, the strong run game defensively, some of the creative coverages, the match coverage that can get Pittsburgh into trouble. Of course, I know Mason Rudolph started the Chicago Bears game, and Rodgers will be starting tonight. I know that was away versus home, but I see some of those same potential, pitfalls and traps for Pittsburgh. The run defense has not been good. Derrick Harmon, will he play? It doesn't look great right now, and if he does, then I assume that snap count will be pretty limited. So all of that to say, I think people will be happy about this, though, because they typically are when I go the other way. I'm going to take the Dolphins in this one, Dave. 26-24, last-second field goal that breaks the Steelers' hearts at Acrisure Stadium. Certainly hope I'm wrong. History says I will be. History says Pittsburgh should win this game. Won 22 straight Monday night at home, but I'll go the other way. History's been broken this year, the Packers game, for example, so I'm taking the Dolphins on a heartbreaker, Dave.
Wow, very interesting with all the cold and the and the
but they can run the ball. They run the ball.
Yeah, the storyline attached to Tua and all like that. And look, not having TJ Watt, obviously a big part to watch going into this game as well too. So, man, you're talking about a streak spanning all the way back to 1991, as you mentioned, 22 straight on Monday night at home. The Steelers have won. I'll tell you point blank, if this game was being played, if the same game with the same situations here was being played in Miami tonight instead of Pittsburgh, I would pick the Dolphins. But I am a trend type of guy, and look, the Steelers.
But the trend is 1-11 without TJ Watt.
I know. But color rush, gold end zones, cold, all that just seems to stack in Pittsburgh's favor here. I don't say this with a lot of confidence, but I'm just trying to tell you the reason why. I would indeed pick the Dolphins to win this if this game was in Miami, but it's not. It's in Pittsburgh. This is a gotta-have-it game for both teams, but boy, the Steelers, you do have to wonder what this means for the rest of the season if the Steelers drop this, because they turn around and play the Lions, who, by the way, they're early 7-point underdogs to the Lions next week on the road. You get Cleveland and a good pass rush defense the following week, and then obviously you end it with the Ravens to close out the season. I have this 24-20 Steelers. Plain and simple. I think there's a big turnover in this game that the Steelers benefit from. I'll take Aaron Rodgers over Tua in this game. I think the running games end up kind of washing each other out, I'm hoping, overall there. So I think the difference is maybe a turnover and the Steelers converting that into a touchdown being the difference in this game. Pittsburgh 24, and I think Hal picked the same thing, 24-20 there. So that's the way I'm going.
Holding hands with Hal. Quick interruption for Jaylen Warren update per Tom Pelissero just tweeted this out. I'll read the tweet verbatim. He says, quote, Jaylen Warren woke up sick and is getting fluids, but I'm told he's optimistic about playing tonight, end quote. So probably be good to go with Warren. He'll probably power on through. We'll get the official confirmation when inactives come out. We'll see what the role is. Could there be any reduction in snap count? But Warren should be dressing tonight.
Yeah, we might see a little bit more Caleb Johnson in this one, right?
Yeah, but with how aggressive Miami is with their blitz packages, maybe some early down stuff. They've been doing kind of some P and 10 first play of the possession stuff with Caleb, try to get him in some clear and known situations. But it might be a lot of Kenneth Gainwell if Warren's going to be limited in any kind of form or fashion.
All right.
If Pittsburgh wins this game, we'll play our game. What is the number one reason why Pittsburgh wins this game?
Obviously, did a good enough job against the run and A-Chain and obviously their complements of backs. They forced Tua into one or two interceptions, plain and simple. Win the turnover battle. Not necessarily. I don't think the Steelers necessarily have to win the running game total yards outright. They just can't let the Dolphins have 140, 160, 180 yards on the ground. You got to keep them around 120 or so.
Or less. I mean, I think 100, if you can keep them at 100 is kind of the number I'm aiming for in this one. But I think if they do win the game, Pittsburgh does, it's because they're on defense, it's discipline, they tackle well. They're in their gaps, they're setting the edge, the DBs are getting involved, they're making plays. It's kind of full all 11 run defense. If Pittsburgh can not take away that run game, but minimize it, make it more painful for Miami, that's certainly a big key to victory.
And if the Steelers lose, it's because A-Chain's probably gone wild on you. We're talking a lot about some 10-yard runs in this game. We're talking about Miami being able to convert a lot of third downs, a lot more third downs, manageable third downs in this game. And we're probably talking about a turnover or two on the offensive side of football there. But A-Chain is a guy that can take it to the house. I don't care how cold or how warm it is overall there. So that is a key guy that you got to take away in this game. If A-Chain totals 150 total yards from scrimmage, it's probably been a long night. Probably talking about missed tackles and everything that goes along with that, the defensive bugaboos and all.
Yeah, the Dolphins win this game. It's because their offense stayed in rhythm, both in the run and pass game, and certainly a healthy run game sets up their pass game, no question about that. And then offensively, probably means Pittsburgh can't find their own rhythm. Their run game has been invisible the last 2 weeks. That must show up in this game. There's no question about that. And can Pittsburgh sustain that vertical passing game? If they lose this game, it probably means they did not get those vertical plays they got so routinely and so majorly against Baltimore. So that's going to be the obvious key.
Yeah, interested to see how much yards after the catch. I'm not expecting a lot of downfield completions like we saw in that last game that the Steelers had, being able to push the football down the field, specifically if the Dolphins do come out and play, two deep safeties and all that. I mean, it's just an invitation to run that much more there. But can they get the ball in the hands of DK Metcalf on the run, Calvin Austin, get these guys a little bit of space and it feels like we're going to have to talk about at least a better yards after the catch than what we saw in Baltimore, because specifically, not thinking that this team's going to complete a lot of footballs down the field more than 15 yards in the air past the line of scrimmage.
Should note, the weather in terms of the wind should not be factors according to the forecast I pulled up. Really minimal wind tonight, no precipitation, just going to be super cold. 14 degrees at kickoff is the projection right now, and it'll basically hover around there throughout the rest of the game. All right, Dave, quick Week 15 check-in. Ravens scoring a big win, 24-0 over the Bengals, and so that was huge to their success. A lot of unfortunate injuries over the weekend. Patrick Mahomes, torn ACL, suspected torn ACL for Micah Parsons. The Ravens lost one of their standout rookies, Teddy Buchanan, to a likely suspected torn ACL, so he will not play in the rematch. Phillip Rivers, comeback almost happened against Seattle, but Seattle wins that one late. What were your week 15 thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a playoffs that does not include the Kansas City Chiefs for the first time in a long time, and that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. And then now they lose Mahomes to an ACL, makes you kind of wonder how long that rehab will go. But I mean, the key point there is Kansas City's not going to be in the playoffs there. Buffalo showed a lot of intestinal fortitude coming back and beating New England, keeping them from clinching. Denver continues to just roll on. They're currently number 1 seed. They're the only team on the AFC side to clinch a playoff spot at this time. Jacksonville continues to play decent ball. Indianapolis, unfortunately, looks like they're fading now. It's going to be hard to imagine them winning a lot of games with Phillip Rivers. It was a good effort. Their defense just came up. They could not stop the field goals overall there. Houston did what they're supposed to do. The Chargers obviously took care of the Chiefs. There are 3 teams outside of the playoff window right now. They are Indianapolis, Baltimore, and Miami. I have a hard time imagining, regardless of what happens tonight, that Indianapolis and Miami will be in this thing. So more and more you look at this, and regardless of even if the Steelers win this tonight, which obviously would behoove them to do it, it feels like we're setting ourselves up for a Week 18 showdown between Baltimore and the Steelers to see which one of those teams win the division and get the number 4 seed. Whoever wins the AFC looks destined to get the number 4 seed, and it's hard to imagine the other teams that are in that window right now in the top 7 spots changing at this point. So I think the biggest mystery when it comes to the AFC is who's going to win the North, who's going to be that number 4 seed. And then it looks kind of wide open in the AFC. Yeah, New England's playing great ball with Drake May and all, but how great a team are they? How great a team really is Denver? I mean, they got a great defense. Can they rely on their offense, even though their quarterback, Bo Nix, had a heck of a game in that game yesterday to beat the good Green Bay Packers team. As far as the NFC side goes, man, that obviously is wide open, and got teams like Detroit, Carolina hanging around. Dallas is all but left for dead at this point, so it seems like 2 other teams in Detroit and Carolina trying to sneak into playoffs.
Yeah, the George Pickens honeymoon might be over in Dallas. It's been tough for the last couple of weeks, and I'm seeing the criticism begin to mount. And just watching the Lions, even though they had that loss, scoring with 34 points against the Rams, just a little preview of what's to come in Week 16, short week on the road against Detroit. Not going to be easy, but of course the focus is on Miami tonight. The Browns getting shellacked by Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders struggling quite a bit. Those receivers did not always help him out either. So that's kind of on the docket for Pittsburgh. Detroit Week 16, Cleveland Week 17, and then home against Baltimore in Week 18.
Would you agree that the only thing really left to be decided at this point in the AFC is who's the 4 seed?
I hadn't looked at everything. I mean,
you don't think
there's
Indianapolis?
Still a fight for the 1 seed. There's still a fight for the AFC East title too.
Well,
between the Bills.
I'm talking about teams that actually get in the tournament, not so much the seeding.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at the playoff odds today. I can try to check here, but it's the number 1 storyline. I think will be Pittsburgh and Baltimore. We called this a couple weeks ago. That's Week 18 was going to be for the 4 seed or bust. 1 team will make it. The loser's going to go home, and that still very much seems to be the case, increasingly so as we hit this home stretch. Yeah, so the short answer, yes.
Yeah, and let's see, Baltimore now has to get ready to play the Patriots, and I guess a good thing is that the Patriots lost, so they still have plenty to play for when it comes to seeding. But Baltimore, even before they get to Pittsburgh, has to play New England and then the Packers, and they got to play at Lambeau in that game, and then obviously the Steelers get Detroit and then Cleveland before they play Baltimore. So, all right, I'm ready for the game tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking at just the projections right now. Basically, your wildcard teams are almost locked in. The Chargers, the loser of the AFC East, we'll just say the Bills for now, and the loser of the AFC South, we'll say Houston for now because that's where they sit. The Colts still have technical hope, but their season with all the injuries is pretty much over. And again, Pittsburgh, Baltimore fighting for that seed. The Dolphins have about a 1% chance at a wild card spot, and so they are not technically. Are they eliminated if they lose this game tonight?
I don't think
probably
they are.
No?
But they're going to need a lot of help, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, they already need a miracle to begin with. Even if they're not technically eliminated tonight, they functionally will be. So a lot on the line there. All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails if we have any and close out today's show.
Yeah, we don't really have a lot here. I'll just read one off from Chuck Griffith here to say that we got an email in here. What was the most laughable thing from yesterday's game? A, Raiders only hanging out in Philly for 2 hours and 35 minutes. B, announcer saying that Myles Garrett's sack total is more impressive than Strahan and Watt because his team only has 3 wins and the other team doesn't need to throw on them. Or C, Bengals head coach Zach Taylor wearing the inspired change sweatshirt.
Yeah, Pickett's stat line. I didn't watch the game. Was that how long? Was it only a 2.5 hour game and a 31 nothing loss? That is horrible. He threw 64 yards. I mean, it's just Pete Carroll. I don't think can come back. This just has not worked. He's supposed to be somebody that raised the floor of this team. They've only sunken all the more. They fired everybody. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is there. It's all. I think the Bengals getting shut out though. In a week where Joe Burrow talks about kind of his future and not having fun, squander some early chances. To me, that kind of feels like almost a new low, if there is such a thing for the Bengals.
Joe Burrow certainly didn't have fun yesterday, right?
Yeah, I didn't have fun watching it because, man, if Cincinnati could have pulled off that upset or that win, that would have been almost as big as Pittsburgh beating Miami in itself. And so with that not happening, this thing really seems to be tracking towards Week 18 for all the marbles between the Steelers and Ravens.
What was that crazy report about the Steelers told to hold and not about what was the thing about Myles Garrett and the Steelers?
Yeah, Ross had the tweet that went pretty viral in Steelers and apparently Brown circles as well. I don't know exactly the source behind it, but it was the broadcaster kind of secondhand saying that someone said the Steelers' mantra for the last couple years has been just do anything possible to not let Myles Garrett get a sack, even if that means taking a penalty, basically dragging Garrett down. If you had to, do everything you can in your power to not let him get a sack. So I think Ross had said there hasn't been a penalty called against somebody on Garrett in Pittsburgh for the last couple of years. So I don't think it's really had to be put into effect, but it is certainly going to be something to note, knowing that Myles Garrett, of course, he could set the record next week, probably does, but if not, then Week 17 against Pittsburgh, there's a chance that he could set, break, tie TJ Watt's and Strahan's sack record or against Pittsburgh, I should say.
Look, you're obviously going to go into every game trying to not not let Myles Garrett kill your game, but to say that you're going to hold him and do everything you can, that's just outlandish.
Yeah, I think it probably was a little tongue in cheek. The point being, don't let Garrett get the big numbers. Don't let him hit the quarterback and kind of get feeling good. So it's probably more of it's probably less there than there meant to be. And again, this was apparently the strategy for the last several years. This was not just the instructions for this year and some sort of effort to not let Garrett break the sack record, which I think is how people are interpreting that comment. But interesting all the same. He's now, 1 sack away from tying and, of course, 1.5 from setting the single season official sack record.
All right. With that, we'll wrap it up after about an hour and a half today. We appreciate Hal Habib coming in and talking to us today. Alex and I will be back on Tuesday to recap the Monday night game, but we're probably going to do that after, assuming Mike Tomlin holds his press conference on Tuesday, which he should. So probably a later podcast on Tuesday, and then we'll figure out where we want to go there for the rest of the week as far as a podcast schedule is. We'll probably just keep it Wednesday and Friday. We'll see, but we will be back on Tuesday at some point during the day to recap the Steelers game against the Dolphins and talk about what Mike Tomlin had to say during his noon press conference on Tuesday. That's about all we can give you the heads up for right then. Obviously, we'll be working late into the night, recapping everything that happened with Dolphins Steelers on Monday Night Football. So, as usual, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please like and subscribe, as the kids like to say. Help us out there on the YouTube platform there with that. So until Tuesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.